transport, but a small portion of it. Active transport means here it occurs against the concentration gradient, means the substances that goes from the low concentration to the high concentration. Okay, now this active transport are of two types: primary active transport and secondary active transport. So the example of primary active transport is sodium potassium pump. I have already discussed this in the class. And about the secondary active transport is of two types: co-transport and counter-transport. Co-transport means it goes towards the same direction, okay, when two or more substances go towards the same direction. And counter-transport means when goes to opposite direction, okay. So here we are talking about the secondary transport and co-transport, okay. So the example of co-transport is sodium glucose co-transport, sodium amino acid co-transport. Here we will be talking about sodium glucose secondary active co-transport, okay. Let me write this: sodium glucose transport. Let me draw the figure, and you all also try to draw the figure along with me. It would be helpful for you. So let me write this. So this is the capillary. And this is the lumen, okay, and this is the cell. Those looking not so nice, but it's okay, we can understand it. It's okay. Okay. Now here the side of the cell that is present near the capillary or blood vessel, that we call basolateral side, okay, and the side of the cell that is along the lumen, that side we call luminal side, okay. Now here the sodium potassium pump will be present on the basolateral side of the cell. Okay, first let me tell you that this is the cell of the intestine or the kidney tubules, okay. We are not talking about the other muscle cell or fats. We are just talking about the intestinal cells or the kidney tubules, okay. So okay, so here our this sodium potassium pump, we know this sodium potassium pump is the example of which one? Primary active transport. And this is the sodium potassium pump, okay. Now here we are drawing this GLUT 2. This is the SGLT 2, okay, and here it is the GLUT 2 transporter, okay. This is the carrier protein, and this carrier protein we called it SGLT2, and this carrier protein we call the GLUT2, okay. Now let me start that This sodium potassium pump, I already told about you that this is the primary active transport. Okay, energy comes from the expenditure of ATP. Now we know that sodium is more in the lumen over here. Okay, so sodium is more in the lumen, and this glucose is more in the cell. Glucose is more in the cell. Remember, sodium is more in the lumen and glucose is more in the cell. Glucose more in the cell, sodium more in the lumen. Remember this thing only. Okay, don't forget, this is very important, very important, because this is not a normal cell. This is the intestinal cells or the kidney cells I'm talking about. So in these cells there is more glucose in the cell. Okay, so from the sodium potassium pump, these 3 sodium ions are getting out of the cell and 2 potassium ions are getting in the cell. Okay, so that means there is net deficit of the positive ion within the cell. So this has to be fulfilled, right? So this is fulfilled by this sodium that is more in the lumen. It is coming from the high concentration to the low concentration. Okay, so that means it's along the concentration gradient, and this is also using the carrier protein. So this sodium movement is of facilitated diffusion. Okay, is of facilitated diffusion, but sodium doesn't come alone. When it comes, like it uses the concentration gradient, the high concentration power energy, and it drags the glucose along with it. Though glucose is more in the cell, but it is dragging the glucose along with it. Okay, but we know that in the lumen the glucose, the amount of glucose is low, but in the cell the amount of glucose is more. So it is coming against the concentration gradient with this help of the carrier protein along with the sodium ion. Okay, so in this case, this is the what? This is the secondary active co-transport. Okay, this is the secondary active co-transport. Then the glucose is going into the blood vessel by this GLUT transporter. Okay, so this is also the facilitated diffusion over here on the basolateral side, but on the luminal side it is secondary active co-transport. Now let me tell you a story. Think about that there is a club or party is happening somewhere. Okay, and this glucose is a VIP. Okay, it is standing near the door, but not entering this club because it is overcrowded. Though he is a VIP person, so he doesn't want to enter into the overcrowded place. But as he is a VIP, there are a lot of fans or supporters that is actually surrounding him or behind him. Okay, they are cheering him up. But when the security guard on the door is opening that door, the energy of the sodium that were the supporters, okay, that is pushing the VIP, that glucose, along with him to the overcrowded place. So this is the story, thus you can remember. So let me summarize the thing here. This is the sodium potassium pump. This is causing a net deficit of the positive ion within the cell. So it has to be fulfilled. It has to be fulfilled by the sodium that is more in the lumen. Okay, and this is entering into the cell along with glucose. Okay, so along with glucose, but how? by this concentration gradient of the sodium ion. Okay, secondary active transport always depends on the direction of substance in relation to the sodium movement. Remember this. So by this it is entering into the cell and it is the secondary active co-transport, and then the glucose is going out by this glut transporter to the blood vessel. Okay, this is the thing only you have to remember. Okay, thank you.